"Oh my God, sir. Are you okay? Somebody help?" Maya William dropped her canvas tote and rushed toward the man who had collapsed on the sidewalk. The man stirred. His lips trembled, and his eyes fluttered open for a brief, flickering second. "Help, please," he gasped, voice hoarse. Before Maya could respond, his eyes rolled back, and he slumped fully against the pavement, body limp. "Sir, sir," she shouted, tapping his shoulder, her hands trembling. No response. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911 with fingers that shook. "Yes. I need an ambulance 8th Avenue and 133rd Street. A man's collapsed. He's not responsive." Panic rose in her throat. She grabbed her phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. "Yes, I'm on 8th and 133rd. A man collapsed. No pulse. I think he's not breathing right." Within 5 minutes, the wailing siren broke the quiet. A paramedic team rolled in, and one of the nurses, a young woman with braids tucked into her cap, immediately took over. They checked vitals, strapped oxygen on the man's face, and started CPR. As they loaded him into the ambulance, the nurse looked at Maya. "Are you the one who found him?" "Yes." "Then please come with us. He may need a witness, or you may have seen what happened." Maya hesitated. She looked at the man again. He seemed so fragile now, despite the expensive suit and polished shoes. She nodded, climbed in, and the doors slammed shut. The ride was a blur of beeping monitors and clipped medical commands. Maya sat to the side, pressed into the corner of the ambulance as the man's chest rose and fell in shallow jerks. When they reached Street Luke's hospital, the gurney wheeled past her with urgency, disappearing through double doors. Maya was left standing in the waiting area under fluorescent lights, her apron still stained from a 12-hour shift. She should have left, but something in her gut told her to stay. 20 minutes passed. 30. Then a woman burst into the ER. Tall, elegant, with silver hair swept into a chignon, pearls at her neck, and fury in her eyes. "Where is he? Where is my son?" she barked. A nurse pointed her toward the intake room. But before the woman stepped through, her eyes landed on Maya. She paused. Her gaze swept over Maya's coffee-stained apron, tired eyes, brown skin. "You," she said sharply. Maya blinked, startled. "Mom, you heard him, didn't you?" "No. I found him on the street. He collapsed. I called for help." "You touched him?" The woman snapped, stepping closer. "You people always take advantage of weakness. My son's wallet better still be on him." Maya's breath caught. "I didn't take anything. I helped." Before she could finish, the woman slapped her across the face. The sharp crack echoed through the waiting room. Maya staggered backward, stunned, one hand pressed to her cheek. "Please," she whispered, tears burning her eyes. But the woman wasn't done. She grabbed a fistful of Maya's hair, tugging her head back viciously. "If he wakes up worse than before," she hissed, "I'll make sure you never work in this city again. I'll bury your name in places you don't even know exist." "No." Maya's knees buckled. "Please. I didn't mean to cause harm. I was just trying to help." "Help?" the woman spat. "You think people like you help people like us?" The nurses finally intervened, pulling her away, calming the scene. But the damage was done. Maya stood shaking in the corner, trying to catch her breath. Every nerve screamed, not from pain, but from memory. Because this wasn't the first time someone looked at her and assumed the worst. She remembered being 10, clutching a lunchbox she didn't pack because her mom couldn't afford food that week. A teacher had accused her of stealing it off another student's desk. No apology came when the truth came out. She remembered the landlord who refused to fix their heat in the dead of winter. "Y'all people are always cold, always complaining," he had said. And now this. She had saved a man's life. And still, she was seen as a threat. Wesley Carter lay unconscious in Trauma Room B. His vitals were stabilizing, but his mind wandered in dreams he couldn't wake from. A white hallway, a child's laugh echoing, a woman's hand in his, and then a scream, tires skidding, shattered glass. His chest sized. He gasped and opened his eyes. A nurse hovered beside him. "You're awake," she said gently. "Where?" "You're in the hospital. You collapsed. It's okay now." Wesley blinked slowly. The girl. There was a girl. Yes, the nurse replied. She's the one who called 911. She stayed until you got here. What's her name? She didn't give one. Just said she saw you fall. Wesley tried to sit up, but the nurse laid a hand on his arm. Sir, you need to rest. He stared at the ceiling, his mind drifting back to another voice, smaller, younger. His daughter, Lily, singing in the back seat. His wife, Dana, humming along. That was before the black ice, before the world spun sideways, before everything shattered. Since their deaths 2 years ago, Wesley hadn't known peace. Sleep was rare, silence was constant. But tonight, for the first time in months, someone had reached into that silence. A stranger. Find her, he whispered. Sir? Please, I need to know who she is. The nurse gave a nod and stepped out. Wesley exhaled deeply, his chest tightening with emotion. He closed his eyes again, but not in fear. This time, there was something else. A spark. Then, her hands trembled as she pulled her phone from her pocket, thumb hovering over the mom contact. But she didn't press call. Not yet. She sat down in the corner of the waiting room, legs drawn to her chest, apron still stained with another day's labor. She whispered to herself, I should have walked away. But she hadn't. She had chosen kindness, humanity, compassion. What Maya William didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that this small, trembling act of goodness, this decision to stay and help, would unravel the darkness in another man's life. And in doing so, it would change her own life forever. Wesley Carter sat upright in his hospital bed, staring out the frosted window. Snow flurried lightly across the city skyline, dusting rooftops like powdered sugar. But he barely saw it. His thoughts remained anchored to the girl, the one who stayed. He didn't remember much, just her voice, soft and urgent, and the warmth of her hands against his freezing skin. And the way she whispered, You're not alone. No one had said that to him in 2 years. Not since Dana and Lily were taken from him on that black ice road in Vermont. Not since their laughter was replaced by sirens and the mechanical beep of hospital monitors. David, his assistant, entered the room, crisp in his tailored coat, holding a tablet and coffee. You should rest, sir. No, I'm fine, Wesley muttered. You flatlined for 30 seconds, David said, placing the tablet on the tray. That's not nothing. I said I'm fine. Wesley rubbed his temples. Did you find her? David sighed. We're pulling footage from nearby traffic cams. EMT report confirms she called 911 from a prepaid phone. Name unknown. But she rode with you in the ambulance. We should have her soon. Wesley's eyes narrowed. I need to speak to her. Malay, I don't think that's wise, especially after your mother's reaction. Wesley looked at him sharply. What did she do? David hesitated. She confronted the girl in the ER. Loudly. Security intervened. Wesley felt a flare of anger rise in his chest, but he pressed it down. His mother had always believed protection looked like control. He turned toward the window again. She didn't have to help me, David. She could have kept walking. People usually do. I know. Wesley closed his eyes. She saved my life. David didn't reply. He just handed him the coffee and sat down. Across the city, Maya walked the long hallway of her apartment building, her steps slow, head lowered, her face still ached from the slap. Her scalp throbbed where the woman's fingers had yanked her hair, but the worst wound was internal, the humiliation. She entered the apartment quietly. Her mother, Olivia, was asleep in the recliner, a crocheted blanket covering her lap. The small TV flickered with an old Western movie. Maya tiptoed in, dropping her bag on the kitchen table. She stared at her reflection in the microwave door. The bruise on her cheekbone was faint now, but she still saw it. She still heard that voice, sharp, venomous, filled with assumption and disgust. You people always find a way in, don't you? Maya turned away from the reflection. Her stomach churned with shame and fury. She made tea chamomile, her mother's favorite, and sat beside Olivia, gently waking her. Mama, she whispered. Olivia stirred. You home late. There was an emergency. Olivia blinked, then looked closer at Maya's face. What happened to you? Maya hesitated, then shook her head. Nothing important. You got hit. I'm fine. Olivia reached out, touched Maya's hand. You've always carried too much for your age. Maya swallowed hard. I saw a man collapse in the street. I helped. Called 911. Went to the hospital with him. Her mother nodded slowly, waiting. His mother came. Thought I'd hurt him. She didn't hold back. Didn't listen either. I suppose. No. Olivia let out a tired sigh. People don't always want truth. They want comfort. And sometimes hate is more comfortable than gratitude. Maya's eyes burned. All I did was help. I know, baby. Olivia pulled her hand into her lap. But help from the wrong person? That threatens the order of things. Though. Maya looked away. She said she'd make sure I lost my job. I don't even know who he is. I just saw someone hurting. And that's what makes you different, Olivia said. Most people only move when the camera's on. The tea had gone cold. Maya stood and poured it down the sink. Later that night, as she lay in bed, she searched the hospital's patient intake list online. No names listed. Only patient numbers. She had no idea who the man was. No way to find out. But something in her wouldn't let it go. Maybe it was the look in his eyes right before he passed out. The desperation. The same kind her mother had when the pain first started. The same kind Maya had when begging the Medicaid office not to cut off Olivia's care. She turned on her side, pulled the covers over her head, and tried to sleep. Meanwhile, Wesley watched security footage on David's tablet. The resolution was poor, but there she was running across the street, apron flapping, ponytail bouncing. She knelt beside him, spoke, dialed her phone, stayed with him. She didn't hesitate, Wesley said quietly. No, David agreed. She didn't. Wesley pointed to the timestamp. That's the moment. Right there. That's where everything changed. You sure about this? David asked. She's not from our world. I'm not from our world anymore either, Wesley said. His heart monitor beeped steadily. He pressed a hand to his chest, where Dana used to rest her head at night, where Lily used to fall asleep during thunderstorms. That part of him had gone quiet for 2 years. But today, something cracked open, not healed, not yet, but stirred. Find her, he said again. David nodded. Wesley looked out the window once more, eyes tracing the falling snow. Somewhere out there, a girl with fire in her eyes and pain on her face had stepped into his darkness without being asked, and walked away without waiting for thanks. She deserved more than a slap and a warning. She deserved the truth. If you feel for Maya, hit like and comment where you're watching from. Who knows? Someone near you might be watching too. The next morning, Maya woke before the sun rose. Harlem was still half asleep. The streets dim. The sidewalks glazed with thin ice. Inside the apartment, silence lingered like morning fog. Olivia was still sleeping, her breathing soft, and even from the recliner where she'd dozed off again after her pain meds kicked in. Maya moved through the tiny kitchen, making instant coffee and buttering toast, trying to pretend her face didn't still ache or that the humiliation from the night before hadn't burned into her bones. But when she looked in the mirror above the sink, the swelling on her cheek told a different story. The woman's voice echoed again in her mind. Girls like you should know their place. Maya closed her eyes. No. She couldn't let this morning be like the others. She had a shift to work, bills to pay, a mother to care for. Pain didn't earn you time off in her world. You swallowed it. You showed up. You endured. She tied her apron, stuffed a protein bar into her coat pocket, and left the apartment. By 7:15, she was at Mel's Diner, small, greasy, the kind of place old men drank black coffee until noon and tourists stopped in hoping to experience real New York. Her manager, Raoul, gave her a look as she clocked in. You okay, Maya? He asked, his eyes briefly resting on her cheek. Ran into a door. She lied with a practiced smile. He grunted. Well, that door must have had a hell of a grudge. She poured coffee, wiped counters, and smiled at strangers. But inside, she kept glancing toward the door. Expecting what? That woman? The police? Her job termination notice? Instead, 3 hours into her shift, the door jingled open and a man in a charcoal coat stepped inside. Tall, clean-shaven, expensive looking but not flashy. His eyes scanned the diner until they found her. David. Maya stiffened. He approached her booth slowly. Maya William? Her hand tightened on the coffee pot. Who's asking? My name is David Lynn. I'm an associate of Wesley Carter. He's the man you helped yesterday. The name hit her like a bolt of lightning. Wait. Wesley Carter? As in, yes, CEO of Carter Global. Maya blinked. That name was on subway ads, financial reports, charity galas. The kind of man people like her only saw from a distance. Untouchable, unreal. I didn't know who he was, she murmured. David gave a slight nod. He knows, and he'd like to speak with you, personally. Maya hesitated. I don't think your family wants me anywhere near him. A shadow passed over David's expression. His mother acted on her own. Mr. Carter wasn't aware of what happened. He was still unconscious. She hit me, Maya said softly. Accused me, threatened me. David's jaw tightened. And he's deeply sorry for that. He didn't send me to clean up a mess. He sent me because he owes you a debt. And because he can't stop thinking about what you did. Maya's breath caught in her throat. David handed her a card. He's staying in the penthouse suite at Street Luke's. He'll be there until tomorrow evening. No obligation. But if you'd like to talk, he'll make time for you. With that, he turned and left the diner. Maya stood frozen for several minutes. Raoul passed by, raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask. When her shift ended, she found herself walking not home, not to the bus stop but toward the hospital. She didn't know what she expected. Maybe closure, maybe answers, maybe just a moment of human dignity after being treated like trash. At the hospital, she gave her name. The receptionist recognized her instantly. You're the one who saved Mr. Carter, the woman said, smiling. He's been asking for you since sunrise. Maya nodded, heart thudding in her chest, and followed a nurse to the private suite on the top floor. When she entered the room, Wesley Carter was sitting upright, reading a file. He looked tired, but present, his eyes blue, sharp lifted the moment she walked in. You came, he said. Maya stayed near the door. I wasn't going to, but curiosity wins, he said with a faint smile. She stepped closer, cautious. I didn't know who you were, she said. I just saw a man who needed help. I know. He closed the file and placed it aside. That's what makes it remarkable. Maya looked at him. Your mother. She thinks I was trying to scam you. Wesley's eyes darkened. She's wrong, and she'll apologize. Publicly, if needed. Maya shook her head. That's not why I came. Then why? She hesitated. Because I couldn't stop thinking about your eyes when you collapsed. Like you weren't just scared. You looked gone. Wesley stared at her for a long moment. I lost my wife and daughter 2 years ago. Car accident. I've been surviving, I guess. Not living. Not feeling. Yesterday, I hit a wall. His voice cracked slightly. And then you were there, he continued. This stranger with soft hands and fire in her voice, telling me I wasn't alone. You reached into something I thought I buried. Maya didn't know what to say. Wesley leaned forward. Would you let me thank you properly? No obligations. Just dinner. A safe place. No cameras. No noise. Just 2 people talking. Maya's instinct was to say no. Run. Protect herself. But her heart whispered something else. Maybe not every door needed to be slammed shut. Maybe one act of kindness could open another. I'll think about it, she said. Wesley nodded. That's all I ask. Maya stood on the platform at 125th Street, the cold wind pulling at the hem of her coat. Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of the business card David had handed her, now softened at the corners. Carter Global. Wesley Carter. Personal office. The lettering was embossed, expensive, but restrained much like the man himself. She hadn't slept much the night before. Her mind had replayed their conversation on a loop. His calm voice, the sorrow behind his eyes, the invitation to dinner. He didn't push, didn't charm her with wealth or status. Just asked. genuinely, as if he truly meant what he said. She boarded the train and sat near the window, watching the city pass by in smudged gray and faded graffiti. She wasn't sure what tonight would bring, but after what she'd endured at the hospital, the slap, the threat some part of her needed to reclaim her own dignity. To look this man in the eyes, not as a servant, not as a suspect, but as an equal, as a woman who had saved his life. That evening, Wesley Carter stood in front of the penthouse mirror, adjusting the cuffs of his shirt. He wasn't sure why he was nervous. It wasn't a date. It wasn't a business dinner. It was something in between and something entirely different. For the first time in a long while, he wanted to be seen. Not as a CEO, not as a grieving widower, but as a man. A man who had fallen to the pavement, broken, and had been lifted by her. He glanced at the table, where a small arrangement of white lilies Saturday Dana's favorite flower. He hadn't bought them for over 2 years, but tonight, they belonged on the table again. David entered quietly. "She's downstairs." Wesley turned. "Send her up, and stay out unless I buzz." "Oh." David gave a respectful nod. "Understood." Moments later, Maya stepped off the elevator into the quiet luxury of the penthouse. She wore a simple navy dress, thrifted probably, with a coat too thin for the weather and boots that had seen better days. But she walked tall. Wesley stood as she entered the dining area. "You came." "I said I'd think about it," she replied, a small smirk tugging at her lips. "Turns out I'm a fast thinker." He chuckled, gesturing to the table. "Please." She sat across from him. The space was warm, the lighting soft, nothing grandiose, just carefully chosen quiet. "This is a lot," Maya said honestly, glancing around. "I wasn't sure what would make you comfortable, so I aimed for neutral," Wesley replied. "No press, no noise, just dinner." Maya nodded slowly. "That's fair." He poured them both water, then Saturday. "I meant what I said yesterday. You saved my life." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." Maya folded her hands. "And your mother still thinks I tried to hurt you." Wesley's face grew serious. "She's not well. Since Dana and Lily passed, she's held on too tightly. To everything. She lost her granddaughter, her daughter-in-law, and honestly her son. The one who cared about people. About life. The man you met yesterday? He was buried beneath a mountain of pain." Maya looked at him carefully. "And who are you now?" "I'm not sure," he said, voice low. "But I know I don't want to be the man who almost died on a sidewalk and let it mean nothing." They ate in silence for a while. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, warm bread. Simple, but delicious. "So," Maya said, cutting her asparagus, "what happens now? You send me a thank you card? A donation to my church? I get a check and disappear?" Wesley's eyebrows lifted. "Do you want that?" "No," she said honestly. "I want to understand why this happened, why someone like you, with everything, ended up face first on a sidewalk." He took a sip of water. "Because everything isn't what people think it is." Maya watched him. "Tell me." He leaned back in his chair. "The day Dana and Lily died, I had just postponed a weekend trip with them to finalize a merger. I said I'd join them the next day. I never did. That decision haunts me. It plays on loop every time I close my eyes." Maya swallowed. "You blame yourself." "I do." "You shouldn't." "Oh." "Try telling my heart that." A long silence fell between them. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was real. Human. After a moment, Maya spoke. "I know what guilt feels like. I've been carrying it since I was 19. I left my mom alone for a night. Just one. And that's when she fell down the stairs, broke her spine. She hasn't walked since." Wesley's eyes softened. "That's not your fault either." She shrugged. "Try telling my heart that." "No." They shared a quiet smile, two souls bruised by different storms but walking the same path through the rubble. Suddenly, the elevator dinged. Heavy footsteps approached. The door opened. Wesley stood instantly, face tightening. His mother. "What is she doing here?" Mrs. Carter snapped, eyes landing on Maya like a hawk. "Mother," Wesley barked, his tone sharp. I warned you, she hissed at Maya. Didn't I? Do you think a dress and a dinner buys you forgiveness for whatever scheme you're running? That's enough, Wesley thundered. Maya rose to her feet, voice calm but firm. I didn't come here to fight. I came because your son asked me to, and I stayed because he's not the man you think he is, not anymore. Mrs. Carter stepped forward. You don't belong in this world, girl. Maya didn't flinch. Maybe not, but I belonged on that sidewalk when your son needed someone, and you weren't there. The silence was deafening. Wesley stepped between them. Mother, if you can't be civil, you can leave. Mrs. Carter's lips trembled with rage, but she turned and stormed out. The room exhaled. Wesley turned to Maya. I'm sorry. You don't have to protect me, she said. I've heard worse. I'm not protecting you. I'm standing beside you. That was the first time Maya believed it. The next morning, sunlight broke through the kitchen window of Maya's apartment like an uninvited guest. The golden beams stretched across the worn linoleum, reaching the couch where Olivia slept, a slight wheeze in her breath. Maya moved quietly through the space, her mind still replaying the moment Wesley said those words. I'm not protecting you. I'm standing beside you. She hadn't expected him to stand up to his mother, especially not in front of her, especially not for her. It had shaken something in her. A part of her that had long believed men like Wesley Carter didn't see women like her as anything but obstacles, shadows, servants, or threats. But he looked her in the eyes. He listened. That alone made her feel more seen than she had in years. She poured coffee, then walked into the living room and sat beside her mother. How you feelin', Mama? Olivia stirred, blinking slowly. Like my spine took a joyride through hell, but I'm still here. Maya smiled. That's a blessing in itself. They sat in silence for a while, sipping weak coffee and listening to the quiet hum of the city outside. Olivia finally looked over. You okay, baby? You've got that look. What look? The one that says your world just tilted 5 degrees. Maya paused, then nodded. I had dinner with the man I helped. Olivia's brow rose. The one who collapsed? Wesley Carter. Turns out he's a billionaire. Olivia's cup stopped mid-air. The Wesley Carter? Yeah. May. And what on God's green earth was he doing in Harlem, collapsing like a rag doll? Maya chuckled. Long story. But he asked to see me again. Olivia narrowed her eyes. And you're thinking about it. I already did it. Olivia raised her brows higher. Well, damn. I thought it was going to be weird. A power play. But it wasn't. He talked to me. Really talked. You like him? Maya hesitated. It's not like that. I don't even know him. But he saw you, Olivia said quietly. That matters. Maya nodded slowly. Yeah, it does. Across town, Wesley sat in the sunroom of his family estate, a cup of black coffee untouched beside him. He had left the hospital late the night before, against doctor's orders. David stood nearby, holding a tablet. Press wants a statement about your hospitalization, David said. Tell them I had the flu. And your mother? She's been calling all morning. Wesley didn't look up. David continued. She'll be at the board meeting tomorrow. That's unavoidable. Wesley finally lifted his gaze. Let her come. I'm not hiding anymore. David studied him for a moment. You really changed, you know. Wesley took a breath. She changed me. Maya? He nodded. She reminded me that not all wounds are supposed to be hidden. Some deserve to be witnessed. David gave a rare smile. She's not the kind of woman who stays invisible for long. Wesley looked out the window. And I don't want her to. Later that afternoon, Maya returned to Mel's diner for her shift. The bells on the door jingled as she stepped in, greeted by the familiar smell of coffee, bacon, and frying oil. Raoul looked up from the counter. You're glowing. You get a raise I don't know about? Maya grinned. Nope, just good sleep. He gave her a skeptical look but didn't press. You're on section 3. And you've got a customer already. Maya walked toward the corner booth and froze. Sitting there was Wesley Carter, alone, dressed in a charcoal sweater and dark jeans. He looked completely out of place, and yet, not. Mr. Carter, she said, unsure whether to smile or panic. He stood, smiling gently. I was in the neighborhood. In Harlem? He shrugged. I was hungry. She couldn't help it, she laughed. You are the most overdressed man to ever order pancakes here. He gestured to the seat across from him. Join me. I'm on shift. I already cleared it with Raoul. Said I'd tip him enough to replace the coffee machine. Maya sighed, shaking her head. You rich folks really do live in a different world. He smiled. I'm trying to visit yours. She slid into the booth. Careful, you might like it. They ate together, sharing pancakes, eggs, and too many cups of coffee. The conversation was easy, warm. Wesley asked about her childhood, her dreams, her fears, and Maya found herself asking about his company, his music preferences, his favorite childhood books. You ever think about writing? He asked between bites. Maya blinked. What? The way you talk. It's poetic, honest. You make people lean in. She flushed. I used to write. Before Mama got sick. Before bills piled up. You should start again. I wouldn't know where to begin. Begin with that moment on the sidewalk, he said. That moment when you could have kept walking but you didn't. She looked at him for a long moment. Why are you really here, Wesley? He set down his fork. Because the last time I ignored a gut feeling, I lost my family. And my gut says, you're not finished in my life yet. Maya's breath caught. She couldn't tell if it was a promise or a warning, but something inside her whispered, don't run this time. 3 days later, Maya stood outside the Carter Global building, staring up at the glass and steel tower that cut into the Manhattan sky like a blade. It was the kind of building that made people like her feel small on purpose. Every polished window, every security checkpoint, every tailored suit walking in and out of those revolving doors whispered, you don't belong here. And yet here she was, wearing her best blouse and a thrifted blazer, heart pounding against her ribs like a drumbeat. In her hand, a visitor badge with her name printed in bold letters, Maya William. Underneath, smaller, guest of Wesley Carter. The receptionist had offered her water while she waited, but she couldn't drink. Her palms were too sweaty, her mouth too dry. She tried not to think about Olivia back home, about the past due notices on the kitchen table, about the whispers at the diner since Wesley had shown up. This wasn't just lunch or coffee. Wesley had asked her to come to his world, and she wasn't sure if she was stepping through a door or walking into a trap. The elevator opened with a soft chime. A woman in a sleek gray dress greeted her. Miss William, Mr. Carter is expecting you. Right this way. She followed silently through the executive floor. Every inch smelled of money, quiet phones, art that didn't look like art. Hardwood floors polished so clean she could see the worn tips of her shoes reflecting back at her. They stopped in front of a set of tall glass doors. The woman smiled, opened them, and gestured inside. He's waiting. Maya stepped in. The office was massive, 2 stories of glass, bookshelves, leather chairs, and a view of the skyline that stole her breath. And there, behind the desk, stood Wesley. Not in a suit today, but in a dark blue sweater, sleeves rolled, collar open, casual but sharp. He looked up and smiled like he'd been waiting all day just for her. You came, he said. You asked, she replied, keeping her voice steady. I wasn't sure if you would. I wasn't sure either. He moved around the desk and offered her a seat near the window. She sat carefully, clutching her purse like a shield. I didn't bring you here to impress you, he said. Good, because I'm not easily impressed. Wesley chuckled. That's becoming one of my favorite things about you. Maya tried not to smile, but it snuck out anyway. So, what is this? A proposal? Oh, her eyes narrowed. I'm not taking your money. I'm not offering it. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. I'm offering you a job. Her mouth parted, but no words came. I've been thinking a lot about second chances, Wesley continued. About what it means to be seen. You gave me one without knowing who I was, without asking for anything in return. You saw a man suffering and you stayed. She swallowed. That's what decent people do. No, that's what extraordinary people do. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a leather portfolio, handing it to her. Inside was a job description. Executive Assistant. Department. Community Impact. Salary. More than triple. What she made at Mel's. Benefits. Flexibility. Opportunity. I'm starting a new division, he said. A foundation, real work, real impact. But I don't want someone with just credentials. I want someone with heart. Someone who knows how to listen, how to stand up, how to see people others ignore. Maya blinked, stunned. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said. I know you've been fighting your whole life and haven't given up. I know you're loyal, honest, brave. She looked down at the portfolio. This isn't a favor? It's a beginning. Maya closed the folder slowly. And your mother? She'll love this. Wesley's jaw tightened. She'll have to learn to respect it. And you. Duh. And what if she doesn't? Then she won't be part of my future. The silence between them thickened. Not awkward, just full. Loaded with possibilities neither had dared voice before. I need to think about it, she said finally. Of course, he replied. Take your time. She rose to leave, but paused at the door. Why me? She asked, turning back to him. Wesley stood as well. Because you remind me of who I used to be. Before the money. Before the grief. You look at the world like it still has hope in it. Her voice softened. And do you believe that again? He didn't smile this time, but his eyes were steady. I'm starting to. Maya walked out of Carter Global with the portfolio clutched to her chest, her steps slower than before. Outside, the city buzzed on, unaware that anything had changed. But to Maya, the world felt different. Bigger. Not because of the offer, but because of what it represented. A door had opened, and this time, no one had slammed it shut in her face. As she rounded the corner onto 54th Street, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One new text. I meant what I said. Maya, this is only the beginning. WC. She stared at the screen, then tucked it into her pocket and kept walking. She wasn't sure where the road would lead. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like it was hers. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in front of the full-length mirror inside her new office, a modest, sunlit space on the 22nd floor of Carter Global, overlooking a slice of Central Park. Her desk was still bare, except for a framed photo of Olivia and a chipped mug from Mel's diner that she refused to part with. She straightened her blazer, still unsure if it fit her or if she fit it. You're early, a voice said from the doorway. Wesley leaned casually against the frame, holding 2 cups of coffee. One was her order. Almond milk. No sugar. Extra cinnamon. I figured first day meant first impressions, she replied, taking the cup with a smile. You already made yours 3 weeks ago in the snow, on a sidewalk. Maya rolled her eyes but chuckled. Still holding that over my head? Just keeping you humble. They sipped in silence for a moment. Then Wesley said, How's Olivia? Maya's expression warmed. She's good. She called her sister in Atlanta for the first time in 5 years. Says she might visit if the pain doesn't act up. That's good, he nodded. Maybe we can find her a better physical therapist. I've got someone I trust private practice. Wesley, she began, voice cautious. He raised a hand. Just information. You don't have to take it. She softened. Thank you. He smiled, then nodded toward the hallway. Orientation starts in 10 minutes. You'll meet your project team. I told them you're not the kind of boss who talks just to fill air. I'm not a boss. You are now. Maya stepped into the conference room to find 6 people waiting. A mix of ages, races, backgrounds exactly how she'd imagined a real community team should look. She introduced herself, her voice steady but kind. Then she began her pitch. Our job isn't to save anyone, she said. It's to see them, to listen, to figure out where the system failed and what we can do differently. They nodded, taking notes, already leaning in. As she spoke, Wesley watched from behind the tinted glass of the corridor. He didn't need to micromanage. She had it. She always had. Across town, a storm was brewing. Inside a private club in the Upper East Side, Elizabeth Carter sat at a marble table, flanked by 2 board members of Carter Global. Her lips curled into a tight line as she stirred her tea. She's in the building now, she said. An employee. She's not just an employee, one of the men muttered. She's being groomed for leadership. Elizabeth's jaw clenched. Wesley is not thinking clearly. That girl, she's a threat. To what? The younger man asked. To our name, our reputation, everything this company was built on. The older board member sipped his drink. Maybe what it was built on needs to change. Elizabeth's eyes sharpened. Change doesn't come from dragging in strays off the street. Oh, she saved his life, the younger man reminded her. Elizabeth stood abruptly. And now she's rewriting his future. There was a beat of silence. Then the older man said, maybe that's not such a bad thing. Elizabeth's stare could have frozen fire. If she doesn't leave on her own, I'll make sure she does. Later that week, Maya sat with Wesley in his office reviewing files for the Foundation's first project restoring and funding after-school programs in underfunded schools across the Bronx and Queens. Her eyes lit up as she flipped through each proposal. "You really want to do this?" she asked. "No photo ops? No press?" He shook his head. "No headlines. Just results." She looked up at him. "You've changed." Wesley shrugged. "Maybe I just finally came back to myself." Their eyes lingered a moment too long. The air shifted familiar, but unspoken. Then came a knock. David entered, clearing his throat. "Sir, Miss Carter is here." Wesley blinked. "Mother?" David nodded. "Send her in." Maya stood quickly, gathering her papers. "I'll give you two some space." But before she could leave, Elizabeth swept in. She wore an ivory coat, a brooch the size of a peach pit gleaming against her collar. Her eyes fell on Maya, and her lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Still here," she said coldly. Wesley stepped between them. "Mother, you're not welcome to speak to her that way." Elizabeth arched an eyebrow. "I speak how I wish." Wesley's voice turned hard. "Not in this office." Maya's jaw clenched, but she kept her voice even. "I'll be in the hallway." "No," Wesley said firmly. "Stay." Elizabeth's eyes darted between them. "So, it's official then? You've replaced grief with a project." "She's not a project," Wesley snapped. "She's a partner, and if you can't accept that, then we have nothing more to say." For a split second, Elizabeth's mask cracked. Her son, her carefully polished, obedient son, was no longer standing behind her. He was standing against her, her eyes cut back to Maya. "You think this world will let you stay? That you can keep your hands clean while swimming with sharks?" Maya met her stare, calm, strong. "I don't swim, Miss Carter. I walk through storms." A tense silence. Then Elizabeth turned and walked out. Wesley ran a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry." "You keep apologizing for her," Maya said. "But you don't need to." He looked at her, truly looked. "What do I need to do then?" Maya picked up her papers and gave a small smile. "Just keep walking beside me." 2 months passed. Autumn crept into the city with crisp winds and a fire-hued sky. Leaves fell in lazy spirals onto sidewalks, as if time itself had slowed to watch the colors shift. But inside the Carter Foundation offices, the pace only quickened. Maya sat at her desk reviewing the final rollout plan for the pilot school initiative in Queens funding after-school programs, music education, and mentorship opportunities for underprivileged kids. Her team had poured everything into it. For Maya, it wasn't just paperwork, it was redemption. Every form, every budget line felt like an answer to the questions life had shouted at her for years. Wesley had given her the keys. She was driving the mission now. Not as a symbol, not as a charity case, but as a leader. Still, the weight of it all sometimes felt like a shadow trailing behind her, especially when the board wasn't watching her the way they watched Wesley. The way Elizabeth still watched her. That morning, Maya was scheduled to present the project at the monthly board meeting. Not Wesley, her. She stood at the head of the polished oak table, the room filled with gray suits, cautious eyes, and passive-aggressive smiles. She wore navy again, it had become her armor. "Good morning," she began, voice calm. "I know some of you still think of me as the woman who saved Mr. Carter. But today, I'd like you to think of me as something else. The woman who's here to help us save others." Now, that earned her a few raised brows. She clicked through the presentation. Data. Impact metrics. Stories from schools already being prepped for the pilot launch. Photos of children drawing, laughing, studying, all from communities that had been forgotten for far too long. "This is not just a charity project," Maya said. "This is an investment in future leaders, and I'm here to tell you it's already working." As she concluded, there was a brief silence. Then, from the back, came slow, deliberate applause. Wesley. He stood, clapping genuinely, not to fill air, but because he believed. One by one, board members joined in. Even the reluctant ones. Even those Elizabeth had whispered to. Maya let herself breathe. Later that day, in the quiet of the elevator heading back to their offices, Wesley turned to her. "You killed it in there." She smirked. I wasn't sure I would. I was. She looked at him, eyes playful but searching. You always this confident in people you just met a few months ago? He leaned closer. Only when they change my life. The elevator chimed. The doors opened. Neither moved. There was a long, charged pause. Then Maya stepped out, and he followed. That night, she returned home late. Olivia was already asleep, the television humming softly in the corner. Maya moved quietly through the apartment, hanging up her coat, setting down her folder. But as she opened the fridge, she noticed something on the counter. A letter, no return address. Just her name, scrawled in an elegant hand. She frowned and opened it. You don't belong in his world. Leave now, before you're forced to. People like you are meant to serve, not sit at the table. There was no signature, but Maya didn't need one. Her stomach tightened, not because of fear but because of fury. She had tasted respect, earned it, built it with her own hands. And now someone Elizabeth, most likely was trying to tear it down. She sat at the table, reading the note again, then slowly folded it and tucked it into her drawer, not to forget, but to remember. She wouldn't tell Wesley. Not yet. Some battles, she'd learned, you fought in silence. But the fire in her chest said one thing clearly. I'm not going anywhere. The following morning, Maya walked into the office early. She had a new goal. Expand the project into Harlem, into the very neighborhood where she'd pulled Wesley Carter back from the edge, where she'd grown up, where she'd learned how to survive. She typed up the proposal herself, created the pitch deck. She worked through lunch and stayed late. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Wesley knocked gently on her door. You okay? He asked. I'm more than okay. He stepped inside. You've barely left this office in 2 days. I have an idea, she said, spinning her laptop toward him. Harlem. We start there next. Wesley's eyes scanned the document. His brow lifted in surprise. This is good. It's home. He met her gaze. Then, it's where we go next. There was a pause. Then he added, Maya, I got a call this morning. From a reporter. They're asking questions about you. Your past. Your mom. Your job at Mel's. Someone's feeding them information. Maya's expression didn't change. She expected this. It's a warning shot, she said. I can shut it down. She shook her head. No, let them write what they want. I'm not ashamed of where I come from. His voice lowered. They're not writing it for you. She stood slowly, walking to the window. The city blinked below, chaotic, messy, alive. They can try to drag my name, she said, but they can't rewrite my story. I earned this, and I'm not backing down. He joined her at the window. You never do. She turned toward him. Neither do you. Another pause. Then Wesley said softly, I meant what I said that night. About beginnings. Maya's eyes searched his face. This doesn't feel like the end of something, he continued. It feels like the start. Of what? Whatever we're brave enough to build. The morning news hit harder than a slap. Maya had just stepped off the subway, the crisp wind tugging at her coat, when her phone buzzed with an alert. Then another, then another. She glanced down, breaking. From waitress to Carter's closest confidante, who is Maya William. Black Cinderella or corporate manipulator. Inside the rise of Maya William. Sources claim Maya used sympathy and strategy to climb the Carter empire. Her breath caught in her throat. At first, she laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. The kind of laugh people let out when they've been insulted by something so absurd, it circles back to dangerous. But as she scrolled, it became clear. This wasn't just idle gossip. It was coordinated. Photos, timelines, anonymous insiders, her time at Mel's, Olivia's health, even a half-warped quote from her former landlord about late rent and loud company. It was meant to break her. Instead, it lit something in her chest. She walked into the Carter Foundation building with her shoulders squared, head high. The receptionist gave her a look curious, maybe even pitying, but Maya didn't slow. Let them stare. Let them watch. She had nothing to hide. Wesley slammed the door behind him. Who gave them this? David stood at the edge of the office, tablet in hand. The source was listed as confidential. But the angle, the timing, It reeks of your mother's influence." Wesley muttered a curse under his breath. "She crossed a line." "She didn't just cross it," David said quietly. "She set it on fire." Wesley ran a hand through his hair. "Get PR on the phone. Draft a statement. Clear. Firm. No spin. I won't let her tear Maya down." "Oh." David didn't move. "What?" Wesley snapped. David hesitated. "You sure that's the right move?" "I'm not staying silent. I'm not saying you should, but Maya might not want to be spoken for." Wesley blinked, then slowly sat down. He hadn't thought of that. Meanwhile, Maya sat alone in her office, blinds drawn. Her laptop blinked with unread emails. Her phone buzzed with missed calls. But she stared at neither. She stared at the photo on her desk, her and Olivia on the day she graduated from her nursing program, before the accident. Before everything changed. Maya in borrowed shoes, Olivia in her Sunday hat, both of them smiling like they didn't know what life had planned. A soft knock broke the silence. Wesley stepped in, gently closing the door behind him. "I wanted you to hear it from me," he said. "We traced the leak. It came from a shell contact attached to a PR firm my mother uses." "It was her." Maya nodded, unsurprised. "I'm going to the board. We'll issue a public response." "Don't," Maya cut him off. Wesley blinked. "Don't? I don't want you fighting this battle for me." His brow furrowed. "But it's my company, and it's my life," she said firmly. "I don't want to be your next press war, your next damage control strategy." Wesley's jaw worked. "You think that's all this is? I think you're trying to fix it the only way you know how. With power, with influence. But that's not how I survived Harlem. That's not how I survived her." He stepped back, quiet for a moment. Then softly, "What do you want to do?" Maya looked him dead in the eyes. "I want to speak. In my voice. On my terms." Wesley slowly nodded. "Then we'll make that happen." That evening, Maya recorded a video. No makeup, no PR team, no lights or filters, just her and her truth. She sat in a small room, a single lamp casting warm shadows across her face. "I'm Maya William," she began, "and I didn't come from privilege. I came from Harlem. My mother raised me on tips and hope. I've been a waitress, a caregiver, and for one terrifying moment I was the stranger who found Wesley Carter collapsed on a sidewalk. I didn't know who he was. I just knew he needed help." She paused, steady. "I didn't rescue him to get a job. I didn't stay by his side to climb a ladder. I did it because someone needed to, and I'd do it again." Another breath. "People are saying I don't belong here. That I must have used something pity, manipulation, race to get where I am. But I'll tell you what I did use. Grit, honesty, and work no one saw but everyone benefited from." She looked directly into the lens. "Some people think women like me should stay quiet, stay grateful, stay small, but I won't. I won't hide where I come from. I won't apologize for being here. And I will not let anyone decide the value of my voice." A pause. "If that makes you uncomfortable, good. Growth usually does." The video went live the next morning. By noon, it had 2 million views. By nightfall, it had 10. The comment section flooded with messages from teachers, nurses, janitors, single mothers, and young black women who saw themselves in her. Not as victims, but as mirrors. Strong, unapologetic, unshakable. Number "We See Maya" started trending, and behind closed doors, the board of Carter Global held an emergency meeting not about firing her, but about elevating her. Because she hadn't just survived the storm, she became it. At the end of the day, Maya sat across from Wesley in the quiet of his office. He reached out, gently brushing her hand. "You were extraordinary." "I was honest," she said. "Same thing." They sat together, the city glowing behind them. "You know," Maya murmured, "when I found you on that sidewalk, I thought I was saving you." "You did. But maybe," she whispered, "you were sent to save me too." And in that moment, they understood something neither of them had dared say aloud. This wasn't just about justice. It was about becoming. The Carter Foundation's Harlem Project launched under a soft, honey-colored sky. The smell of roasted peanuts, fried plantains, and the faint echo of jazz carried through the street. wrapping the ribbon-cutting ceremony in warmth and memory. Maya stood on the small stage in front of the community center, dressed simply but sharply in a maroon blazer and slacks. The air was alive with people, teachers, parents, city workers, local reporters, but her gaze kept drifting to one face near the back of the crowd. Olivia, in a wheelchair now, wrapped in her favorite blue shawl, a smile tugging at her lips. Pride shone in her eyes. The kind of pride that said, "You did it, baby. You did it the right way." Wesley stood beside Olivia, his hands in his coat pockets, quiet but present, always present. When Maya took the mic, the chatter died down. "I grew up 3 blocks from here," she began, voice steady. "I used to walk past this building on my way to school. It was a shut-down rec center back then. Broken windows, empty halls, a place people forgot." She paused, letting her words settle. "Today, we reopen it as a center for growth, for education, for safety, for kids like the girl I used to be, who need a place to dream out loud." Applause followed, but it wasn't polite, it was real. It rolled through the street like a heartbeat, and Maya, for the first time, didn't flinch at the sound of being seen. She walked off the stage into a sea of hugs, handshakes, and teary thank yous. A group of middle schoolers surrounded her, asking about the computer lab, the music studio, the after-school snacks. Maya laughed and answered every question, but even amid the joy, a shadow waited. Across the street, in a dark car with tinted windows, Elizabeth Carter watched it all unfold. The community, the cameras, the cheering, and her son, standing beside her. This wasn't a phase. It wasn't gratitude or obligation. It was loyalty. Worse, love. The man who once called her the most important woman in his world now looked at another woman with eyes she'd never seen. Beside her, her attorney shifted in his seat. "Ma'am, if we're going to contest the trust restructuring, we need to act now." Elizabeth's voice was ice. "Let them have their little victory." He blinked. "I thought we were." "We are," she said sharply. "But sometimes, you don't kill a flower by cutting it down. You poison the roots." That evening, back at the Foundation's office, Maya flipped through the thank you notes from the school kids, crayon drawings of her face. Notes like, "You make me believe in grown-ups," and, "Miss Maya, can I be like you when I grow up?" She felt the lump in her throat before she could swallow it back. She wasn't just a face on a press release. She was a symbol now, and symbols didn't get to rest. Wesley stepped in, holding 2 paper plates from the after-party, fried chicken, mac and cheese, and peach cobbler for dessert. "I thought you'd be starving." Maya grinned. "You know me too well." He set the plates down, then pulled a folded document from his pocket. "What's that?" she asked. "My lawyer drafted something," he said. "It's just the first draft. But I'm putting your name on the Foundation charter, as co-chair." Maya stared at him. "I don't want a token title," she said. "You wouldn't be," he replied. "You'd be leading it, officially, permanently." She looked down at the paper. Her name, in ink, side by side with his. "I need time," she whispered. "You've got it." But before either of them could say more, Maya's phone buzzed on the desk. Unknown number, again. She sighed and answered. "Hello?" A familiar voice rasped on the line. Low, confident, cold. "You should be careful, Miss William. Some people don't like watching you rise." Click. The line went dead. Maya stared at the screen, heart pounding. That voice, it wasn't Wesley's mother. It was someone else. Someone powerful. Someone watching. She set the phone down slowly. "What is it?" Wesley asked, sensing her shift. She looked up at him. "I think we just stepped into a deeper game." That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat by Olivia's bed, watching her mother breathe. The TV played an old Western, but Maya didn't hear it. She kept replaying the voice, the words. "You should be careful." There was something in the tone, not a threat. A promise. She rose quietly, walked to the window, and looked out over